The RP show continues, and I will tell you now, get your questions in for Arash Madani on the Western Dodge text line, 902-518-3033, the number to reach me here at the Golden Ticket Sports Center. New or used, Western Dodge has your next vehicle ready to roll. Visit the dealership or browse 24/7 at westerndodge.ca. Good to see you, good sir. You're all dressed up today. Are you dressed up for us, or what's going on?
Roddy, I always dress up for you. I'm actually
Okay.
downtown Toronto. We are, less than 11 months away from the FIFA World Cup beginning in our country. You know, Canada, U.S., Mexico are hosting it. There's a World Cup event downtown Toronto today that I'll be hosting, moderating, emceeing as part of the Legacy Fund. So wanted to check in with you before heading up to Bay Street.
Well, I really appreciate the time, and our viewers always enjoy seeing your smiling face, and to the degree that they've been writing in questions already for you. So if you're ready to go, I said we were going to
Let's do
talk
it.
some NFL with you. Training camps are opening this week. For you, because I feel like we all have our own topics and things, what are you going to be watching for here in the opening few weeks of training camp?
Well, Rod, and I appreciate that you texted me earlier to give me a chance to think about this. I think it's easy and obvious to talk about the top of mind stuff, right? The KC, the Philly, the Buffalo, the new quarterback in Pittsburgh, Dallas, even Jaden Daniels in Washington. Like, I think those are almost the RSTLNE of the NFL season so far. I'm going to pick a couple other vowels and another consonant. I'm going to start in Baltimore. To me, the Ravens have been the best team in football the last 2 years, and they just come up short. First in the AFC title game in January of 24, and then to Buffalo, Mark Andrews dropping the ball in the end zone in January of 25. Can this be the year that the Ravens, who go upgrade their secondary with Jair Alexander, can this be the year that the Ravens finally put it together and Lamar gets to a Super Bowl? I think that's one. The other, and I think this is very intriguing, and it's not talked about a ton, even in a big market, even when centered around a quarterback, is what about Caleb Williams in year two with new head coach Ben Johnson, the quarterback whisperer in Detroit who comes over for his first head coaching job? Can Johnson revive Caleb Williams? Can the Bears have an actual quarterback for the first time in forever, 2 generations maybe? That to me is an intriguing one. And how about the previous Bears quarterback? You know, Justin Fields goes to the New York Football Jets. And is he a top 3 pick, or was he just another blown draft pick? Does a new situation, does a couple of years under his belt as a starter, does, you know, being the roundabout quarterback back and forth with Russell Wilson last year in Pittsburgh, is he ready to take a real step in becoming a quarterback? So to me, those are 3 probably areas that a lot of people aren't thinking about or talking about. But I'm really intrigued. And of course, it all has to do with the quarterback position because that's the NFL.
Along those lines, Laverne and Swift Current writes in. He says, I'm curious who Arash sees as the NHL's surprise teams of the year for the upcoming season. And if I may preface that, I think there were 6 new teams in the playoffs last year. That's a lot. So there will be some
You said
jump up.
NHL. Was that
NFL.
NHL
Sorry,
or NFL?
NFL.
Yeah.
NFL, my bad. NFL, yeah.
Yeah, and I think 2 of the teams we just mentioned, Laverne, like can the Jets be the number 2 team in the AFC East next year? I know. Sorry, I'm in a train station. If you're hearing other audio,
You're fine. You're good.
You know, the Patriots, to me, nobody spent more money in free agency than New England for the first time in forever. Are they the team that kind of emerges in the post-Belichick Brady era to finally kind of take that next step? I'm intrigued what's going on in Seattle. My guy Sam Darnold ends up with the Seahawks. They draft Jalen Milroe. It's, you know, it's that new era there. What's going to happen in Seattle? So I do think that we're going to see, obviously, some new teams in the playoffs. The 2 teams that also intrigue me, they're both the LA teams. I thought the Rams could have made a run to the Super Bowl, and they were that close. They were that close to beating Philly in the divisional playoff game, the snow game last year. And in year two, what do Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh have in store? I think those are a couple of teams to really keep your eye on as well.
Listen, this won't surprise you, but I'm just telling the world. We talk NFL, the comments go nuts, and we don't have enough time on this show. Brent from Wellington, Florida writes in, he says, among the quarterbacks with new teams in the NFL, who makes the biggest impact? Wilson, Rodgers, Fields, Jones, Smith, Darnold, and let's say J.J. McCarthy, just because he's new to them, isn't taking a snap yet. So
I think the quarterback with the most pressure on him is the quarterback who is yet to take a snap. Like Minnesota decides to move up, my Vikings decide to move on from Sam Darnold. You understand why, because McCarthy was a top 10 pick. Like they are putting all the chips in the middle of the table. They have gone all in on effectively a rookie, Torres Meniscus' first preseason game last year. They upgraded the offensive line. They gave him a couple of new guys up front. They already have a stacked receiving core. They bring in Jordan Mason from San Francisco to help out Aaron Jones in the run game. The defense gets an upgrade. They are banking on J.J. McCarthy being the guy for a team that won 14 football games last year. And so he's the guy who has to be the guy if the Vikings are to do anything.
And I think he's going to be awesome. I really do. Jeremy in Winnipeg writes in, he says, always the same old song, Chargers, Bengals, Bills, Ravens, all better than the Chiefs. And who always beats them? The Chiefs. Until they don't, where's the window on Kansas City, do you think?
Well, I think the window on Kansas City closed 2 years ago, except all they do is keep winning. Look, here's the amazing part about Kansas City. You go back to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago against Philly, the one that KC won, not last year. And everything on paper and in rationality suggested that the Eagles were going to win this thing. But then Mahomes does it again. And then against San Francisco, the Niners were the better team. KC does it in overtime. And then last year in the Super Bowl, it finally looked like it all caught up with them. The 3 years of playing into February, having short off seasons, guys not having opportunities to recover from the year or postseason surgeries, off-season surgeries. Kelsey got hurt early. You guys oblique popped. He wanted nothing to do with going into traffic. Chris Jones couldn't push off, blah, blah, blah. Is it over? I mean, rationally, you would say so, except rationally, they had no business winning the 2 Super Bowls they won. And so, rationally, they really shouldn't have beaten Buffalo in the AFC title game at home last year. But they're KC. So what do you do?
Cole in North Dakota writes in, he says, will the Packers be better this year? If I remember right, they drafted a receiver in the first round. I think that's the team you hate the most on the planet, Green Bay. What do you see in the NFC North?
Well, I'm intrigued. And I know the question is about Green Bay. I'm intrigued about Detroit because you lose your offensive coordinator. You lose your defensive coordinator. How now you've gone from being the hunter to the hunted. How do things change? Do you start believing a little bit of your own BS? How much are things going to be a little bit different there? Jared Goff has shown he's the guy, but what about all the other complementary parts? They just had an offensive line retirement. I think Detroit's going to be an intriguing team because of all that changes when you have success. Green Bay is your everyday extra value meal. It just feels like you know exactly what you're going to get from them. It's not going to wow you, and it's not going to disappoint you. You know what all that's going to come with it. So I don't know how much better the Packers became, but I don't know how much worse the Packers became. So, I think Jordan Love's been steady. He's been good. He hasn't been amazing or great. But for Green Bay to do something, he has to be those things.
Ryan in upstate New York, as I try to go in order here, Saratoga, as a matter of fact, said, your thoughts on the Jets locking up Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner?
Had to. I mean, they're the 2 most explosive players on that roster. Garrett Wilson is as versatile, as maneuverable, as explosive a receiver in the league, not named Justin Jefferson. In a lot of ways, we just talked about the Detroit Lions, Roddy. Garrett Wilson seems like a faster Amon-Ra St. Brown. And sauce is sauce. You know, once you get a corner like that who can lock it in, you pay him. That just kind of, that's the cost of doing business.
Jeremy in Winnipeg with another one. Basically, the Cowboys are his NFC team. They're my team overall, as you know. He says young talent, CeeDee Lamb, now George Pickens, Dak stays healthy, defense gets healthy. How do you think they stack up against the Commanders and the Eagles in the division?
Well, Jeremy, I would tell you this. To me, the comp for the Dallas Cowboys in professional sports is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think you are just fooling yourself by mentioning a bunch of names. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, on and on we can go. Like, what's Dak Prescott? What is he? What's he shown to be? It's as ridiculously run an organization as there is in professional sports. I just don't see with this management structure that they have there anything changing in Dallas.
Couldn't agree more. Rack him. You know, speaking of Wilson, now might be a good time to segue to Luke Wilson, because I saw you extolling his virtues on another program recently. I was on with Hustler Pedersen in Winnipeg yesterday, yours and my mutual friend. He goes, "What do you think?" I said, "He reminds me of me 20 years ago. Good luck trying to, saber rattle and, rattle cages, because that doesn't go over real well in the CFL. You and I both know that. What are your thoughts on what Luke Wilson's doing?"
I'll disagree with that last part, Rod. I think finally we're now at the point in 2025 where it is, where it's finally people are opening their eyes and realizing how refreshing and needed this is. How many times have we talked about what's going on at Grey Cup, and the same people who were going there 20, 25 years ago are now there with canes and walkers? Where are the young people? And here's the thing that Luke does. Luke does this weird thing where he watches film. He watches the All-24. He studies the game. He's involved. He's interested. Like, this is not somebody who's saying, "Oh, I played in the NFL, I'm better than you." He's asking legitimate questions that require answers, and there aren't any of significance that really defy his points. Luke's doing this weird thing that a lot of people have real disdain for these days, Rod. You know what he's doing? He's telling the truth. And people hate the truth. And the thing about sports is there's a scoreboard up there. And so every day you're measured by that scoreboard. You can't message your way out of the scoreboard. You can't come up with narratives to get your way out of the scoreboard. And what Luke's version of the scoreboard is the film. The eye in the sky doesn't lie, and he's got real questions of why attendance is down, or what is that, like, why don't you want to evolve when everywhere around the league metrics are telling you people aren't interested in this, outside of certain markets. So there are real questions that require answering, and people hate, for some reason that I don't understand, people around CFL circles, CFL stakeholders, hate having to answer them, and they take it personally when there's no need for that.
You know the answer to this. Come on, you pulling my leg? It's because they've got egg on their face, they've done a bad job, and they don't like getting called out for it. You and I have been saying this for 20 years, and look where we are. So why is Luke Wilson going to be any different?
Well, I think it's different. Because we're at a time now where so many things are now more data-driven and measurable. We're at a time where you have a commissioner who's come over from a media company who is going to be aggressive, who is not going to just go with his gut, who has told the board of governors, "I need to run this thing the way I'm going to run this thing." I don't think status quo is anywhere good enough for Stuart Johnson. I think Stuart Johnson wants to try new things and do different things. You're already seeing it this year. If you watch the telecast, they're a little different. They're doing some different things. The panel is on site. Wilson's involved. On and on it goes. I think it's just the start of something. Look, on paper and with ideas, Stuart and with the understanding of what content is, what entertainment is, it's not just that Stu Johnson came over from TSN. Stu Johnson came over from Bell Media, where he was involved in the entertainment part of the enterprise. And he understands how content can be monetized, what viewership habits and patterns are. These are things that no previous CFL commissioner had even near as good a grasp on as Stu does. Will he be permitted to go about it the way he wants to in a meddling board of governors? That becomes the question more than anything else.
You got that right. Again, good, more power to him. Nobody else has been able to do it. So I'm just sitting back watching how this unfolds. Just lastly, before I let you go, what do you see in the second half for the Toronto Blue Jays?
The honest answer to that question, Rod, is I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the 2 weeks in the lead up to the All-Star break were wild. You know, you think about how that Yankees series started. I think it was like June 30th, the Monday, whatever it was. So they open a 4-game set with the Yankees, where if things went well, they'd have the division lead. And if they got swept, they would have been 7 games back in the AL East. And then they go on this wild run. And the homestand, go on the road trip. Okay, they stumbled against the A's. I don't know. Will the veteran pitching hold up? What kind of moves will the Jays make at the deadline? There's 2 weeks to go before that comes around. It's as intriguing a time as I can remember around the ball club. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think sitting here right now, the roster on the 17th of July needs to be a lot different than the roster on July 31st when the deadline rolls around.
In 1 minute, what do you think they need from what you've seen?
Another starting pitcher, upgrade in the bullpen, probably one more left-handed bat. I mean, that's your wish list, right? But that's every team's wish list. But I think a real legitimate number one, number two pitcher, if they're, and because you just can't count on Scherzer, you can't. So yeah, I think that would be the priority, and probably one more bullpen arm too.
All right, great hit. Well, listen, break a leg this afternoon. I appreciate you for coming on and spending the time, Arash. Ryan in upstate New York says, thanks for your answer, Arash. Enjoy your day. Real quick, Jeremy says a pre-training camp Super Bowl prediction. You want to just throw out 2 teams, or would you rather not?
Let's go with the St. Louis Rams and the Baltimore Ravens. The St. Louis Rams, the LA Rams and the Baltimore Ravens.
I thought you knew what. I thought you were saying that for a reason. Okay, good stuff. All right, thank you, Arash. Hang on. Don't exit out for just 15 more seconds. Oh, you did? Okay, thank you, Producer Corey. Producer Corey. 902-518-3033, the Western Dodge text line. Until the end of the program, it is viewer takeover. And as well, we've got a sports update coming up on the other side, everybody. We're live on the Game Plus television network across Canada and 32 U.S. states, streaming live and as always found on all major podcast platforms.